Hey, how's it going? Got my Domino here. Sorry about the background noise. Got the AC running, so that's what that sound is. But yeah, just sharpened it and have tape on the blade for safety reasons, obviously. And yeah, I'm just getting some work done on it, and it just doesn't feel as smooth as it should be, so I'm gonna take it apart and get some work done on it. So figured I'd record it and get it up on YouTube, because I've only seen one video of this knife taken apart, and the internals are pretty much a big part of this knife, as you'll see why. I've already taken out the pivot screw and the scale screws using a T8 Torx head bit. Got my screws right there, and actually getting the scale and the liner off was actually pretty difficult compared to most knives. Usually it just comes right off, but this one I actually had to start prying in different spots, and I put it back in, so I actually have to do it one more time to get it off. There we go. So yeah, and show you what's going on with this knife. So as you can see here, this side you have a G10 scale with a carbon fiber laminate over the top. So this is not actually a carbon fiber scale, it is actually G10 scale, just looks like carbon fiber because it has a carbon fiber laminate over the top. So that comes apart, and yeah, and as you can see, there is the titanium liner, and it's milled out. It's got a few drills in it, so to make it more lightweight, I believe. And this is where the internals get interesting. This is the cage ball bearing system, which is supposed to make this knife much smoother, but this knife is not much smoother than most of my knives, and that's a little washer that goes in there, and here's the cage ball bearing system. This knife isn't much smoother than a bunch of my knives, and I believe the reason is that the pivot pin pivot screw was a little tight, so I needed to loosen it. But since I was gonna get into the internals anyways, I decided I might as well get in there and re-grease and re-oil everything, clean it up, get some new oil and new grease in there, loosen the pivot pin. And what I also want to do, let's take off this blade, take this whole thing apart. Yeah, that could use a little bit of cleaning. And as you can see on the other side, there is yet another. Ooh, that's the lanyard pull tube. That's stop pin right there. And there is the other caged ball bearing and the other washer. Keep that in there and keep that in there. Alright, so there you go. Get a good close-up of both the scales. This one's two-piece, obviously. It's got the carbon fiber scale and the titanium liner. Oh. And this is just a full-on titanium scale. And what I'm gonna do is, as you can see, there's the liner lock. I'm sorry, frame lock. And it has this steel insert in the titanium, so that's the lock face of the blade actually contacts steel as opposed to titanium, which is usually not a good thing. If you have titanium on steel on a lock, you usually get what they call a lock stick, I believe, because titanium likes to stick to steel. Titanium likes to stick to steel. So if you have a titanium lock face right here, then it'll stick against the steel of the blade, making it hard to disengage the lock. So they put a little steel insert right here so that you have steel on steel contact, making it easier to unlock the knife. What I want to do, as you can see right here, that steel insert also works as a over travel stop for the lock bar. So as you can see, once you press the lock bar, it doesn't go out for any further than that. One second. As you can see here, this knife does not have an over travel stop, so I can keep pressing on the lock bar to actually get to open up further. Then it should be opened, because you should only have to open it to here, but you could always press it out further, and the further you press it and the longer you hold it is obviously gonna weaken the strength of the lock bar. So that is why they put lock bar over travel stops like this one and on all the hinder knives like this CT. That's a little lock bar stabilizer right there as well. After a certain point, the lock bar hits that stabilizer and it no longer goes out any further. So what I'm going to do to smoothen out this action a little bit is I'm actually going to take out this lock bar stabilizer, and I'm going to actually push out this lock bar a little bit further than it's supposed to go, try to get it to loosen the tension just a hair, so that should actually smooth out the action a little bit as well. So I'm just going to do that off camera because you guys don't need to see that, but yeah, let me get to it. Alright, so took out those two little screws, as you can see, and that little lock bar stabilizer and steel lock face plate should come right out. Alright, there we go. So there you go. So yeah, a lot of what slows the action down on caged ball bearing knife, because like with the caged ball bearings, obviously the action is supposed to be incredibly smooth, so the only tension you're going to have, the only thing that's going to keep the blade from slowing down is the detent right here. That detent ball is on this lock bar, which is putting pressure onto the blade. So I have to take this off because this is the lock bar stabilizer that keeps this bar from going past a certain point. But now that that's off, I can take it all the way out and push it over where it's supposed to go. And unfortunately that pocket clip's there, so I can only take it to a certain point. But otherwise I would just press it even further, and that would actually kind of bend the lock bar out and keep it further out, and adjust it to the point where it has a little less tension. Probably adjust it to the point where it stays like right there as opposed to right there. You know, not much of a difference, but it's just enough to smoothen out the action to the point where the knife just feels a lot faster. The lock is still functioning, and you know, it works just fine. It's just like, you know, it's just a smoother action. It shouldn't be any more unsafe. It should be just as safe. It just should work faster, better, cleaner. So yeah, unfortunately I can only get the lock bar to go right there, which isn't really gonna affect the lock bar too much, so I don't think I'm gonna get it to smoothen out very much at all. I really don't feel like taking the pocket clip off right now, so I think I'm just gonna have to make do with that. Just keep holding it out there for a little bits at a time, and that will hopefully just adjust the lock bar just enough to the point where the action smooths out just a little bit. If I get a little bit of tension off that detent ball, combined with cleaning up both sides of the knife blade around the pivot, putting a little bit of extra oil, or new oil, because it really didn't have much to begin with. Maybe ball bearings aren't really supposed to have too much oil, but it pretty much felt like it had none. So I'm going to take out these cage ball bearings and the washers. I'm going to put a little bit of grease and a little bit of oil on each side of the washer and the cage ball bearing, and hopefully that will smoothen out the action and this knife will run smoother than before. So yeah, I'm gonna get this thing back together and get back to you guys. Alright, so got that steel insert back into the frame lock. Got everything back together blade wise, pivot wise. All the washers and all the KVT bearings have a little bit of oil, a little bit of grease on each side of the washer and bearing, cage bearing. So we're just gonna get this guy back together. We're just gonna take this plate. We've got the stop pin in place. We've got all the washers and cage bearings in place. We've got the lanyard hole tube in place. And keep in mind, this side is a little bit shorter than this side, so it does matter which way you put this back in if it happens to fall out while you're taking it apart. Short side should go into the titanium scale, and the long side should go into the side that has the titanium inner frame and G10 scale. So after that, we just put it back together. And that should be good. Ooh. Just get everything all tightened down all the way. Over tighten anything. Don't want to strip any screws, strip any threads. Alright, so I've tightened all the side screws down to where they need to go. There's definitely a point where they just kind of stop screwing in, so give it a decent little twist after that and you should be fine. With the pivot screw, you just pretty much want to tighten it. There's a certain point where it just wants to stop, so let me show you. Right there, it just kind of gives you a little bit of tension there. So after that, I moved the blade back and forth, and there is absolutely no blade play, which is good. So I'm going to just back it out just a little bit, say a quarter turn, and there is a good amount of blade play there. So just keep tightening it a little bit, like I mean just a hair each time, to the point where there is no blade play. Like right there, there's just a hair of blade play. And now there's none. So what happens now is, as soon as I release the tension on the lock bar, this blade should be free moving. Yeah, and I feel absolutely no tension anymore with the there's no resistance. As soon as I take the lock bar off, tension of the lock bar off, like so, all I have to do is move it all the way over to the side to the point where the detent ball is not touching the blade, and there's absolutely no resistance. You can just feel the ball bearings just glide. So, hopefully, oh yeah, that's much better. That was me just missing the, wow. That is so much faster. So yeah, tell you the truth, I've had this thing for a while and I haven't been that big of a fan of it because it's got the ball bearings and it just was never that smooth. But I was just being lazy. I just didn't feel like sharpening it and taking it apart, and I just want to keep the factory edge, but I never carry it just because, you know, it's not that smooth, and I've got a lot of other options, so it's not my favorite. I mean, if this thing isn't as smooth as it should be, which it is probably now, I'd much rather carry the Paramilitary 2, which is a great knife, and has a great blade shape. Love this knife, and it's got the compression lock. And as you can see, there is, as soon as you take the lock off, there's not much resistance there either, but there is just a little bit, because it does have washers, it doesn't have ball bearings, so yeah. But I also have the Buck Marksman, which has a different kind of lock. As you see right there, how the lock works is it comes in and locks in right there. So there is actually ball bearings in this one as well, and there is absolutely no resistance from the lock bar in between here where it's about to lock and right here when it's about to close. So this actually is completely free hanging and is the smoothest knife in my collection, I'd say. So yeah, the goal is to get knives as smooth as this one. And I'd say we got it pretty close with this. Alright, let me just take the tape off and get back to you. Alright, so I've gotten the tape off and I've gotten a chance to play around with it just a little bit, and it is incredibly smooth now. So out of the box, I really didn't like the action on this thing. Wow, that is much smoother. But yeah, now I'd say it's got the action of a ball bearing knife. That is just wicked fast. Of course, you can do the Spidey flick, you can do the standard thumb flick, you can do the Spidey drop, the standard flipper flick, and you can just do the light switch flip, or you can do the press button flip as well. Just kind of preload it with a press button and just get it to launch right out there. But yeah, that is the Spyderco Domino. Pretty good knife in my opinion. I'm not sure if it's a $200 knife. It is made in Taiwan. I thought this was a USA knife for a second, but it does have that Cts-xhp steel. I thought this was a golden Colorado knife, but wow, for $200 you think you would get USA made, but I'm not sure if I'd recommend this. I mean, I do like it. I'm happy I bought it. I'm not gonna sell it, but would I buy it again for $200? Probably not. I would probably go for a Manix. Manix 2, but the thing is about the Manix 2, it's got that little ball bearing lock, they call it, much like the access lock of a Benchmade, which makes it to the point where you cannot carry it tip down, and I am one of those rare tip down guys, so that is why I did not get the Manix and I decided to go for the Domino. And at the time I bought this, I'm pretty sure I did not have a ball bearing knife, so that was another reason I decided I wanted this. And I was somewhat disappointed when I received it, because at first it was not that smooth. But after taking it apart, oiling it up, and relieving some of the tension of the lock bar, and cleaning just everything out, and just adding new oil and new grease, it has definitely smoothed out and definitely feels like a ball bearing knife now. Well, anyways, that is the Domino. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything I need to cover, so hopefully you guys enjoyed my first knife review slash taking apart video. I think it got a little longer than I expected, so I apologize for that. Didn't really feel like making this long of a video, but it just happened. Not used to making knife videos, so there's a first there as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any other questions or comments, go ahead and post down below. I will get to them as soon as possible. Alright, thank you for watching.